Well, sorry, you caught me in the while I was
That's
taking
it.
a
I was
sip.
like, oh, he's drinking right now. I can get him now. All right, welcome to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with E. This is the podcast for sports videographers. How you doing, E? I haven't seen you in a while. We both kind of went separate ways on trips. So how are you? How are you? And how was your little mini vacation?
Yes, I'm good. And yeah, I was in Barcelona, but unfortunately, I didn't get as tanned as you did because you seem like you saw the sun a bit more than I did. But yeah, it was fun nonetheless. I hit the museums pretty hard. That's what we did. Architecture, all that stuff.
I hit the beaches pretty hard. I was in like Alabama and then Clearwater, and I had shoots outside, shoots inside, editing videos at the end of every day, photos, all that. But I had
On the beach,
some
or
on the beach and conferences, a little bit of everywhere. But I got some
nice.
family time too. I got family out there, so I got to see them, and I had a good time. But it was more work than pleasure. So where
Mm,
yours was more pleasure than work, but it
definitely.
is what it is, right? You make the most out of your opportunities. That's what we kind of want to talk today. Is like, when shit hits the fan, how do you stay calm? How do you make sure that you capture good quality stuff and have a good edit at the end? And that, so today we want to talk about systems and why systems
Mm,
really matter. And systems aren't software, they aren't like a program or anything like that. It's like your own system, so there is no right or wrong. It's like, what do you do for fail safes? What do you do when you're on a shoot to make sure that you've captured enough to make a good edit, or captured enough stuff to make sure that you covered yourself? So that's what we kind of want to get into, because talent only gets you so far, and there are a lot of talented videographers in that. But I promise you, if you have a system or a shot list or a structure that you follow, it will get you ahead of a lot of other videographers out there, just because you're organized and it really really manages the stress. Because you know it's like you're on these shoots and you're running and gunning and you're trying to do everything. If you don't have a plan, what happens?
mhm.
It's
Well, I think
chaos. It's
it's
chaos.
especially real when like talent might be enough if you got all the time in the world to do something like, especially on the editing side. Like if you got all the time in the world to make the best video you can make, you can run on pure talent. But if there's like a time crunch, if it's like a on the day type of thing, or if there's a lot of videos to produce in a short amount of time, you definitely need some structure to produce professional work in a limited time with limited resources.
Yes. So I'm going to walk you through, I think, what is the most important part. For me, it's the preparation before I even leave the house. Okay. So that is, what does my shoot entail? What lenses do I need? What cameras do I want to bring? Charge my batteries, pack my bag ahead of time. I'm doing all that the day before or 2 days before. So the day of the shoot or the day that I leave for the trip, whatever, I'm ready to go. And I double check things. I start coming up with my plan of what I'm going to do, what I'm going to shoot, because there's nothing worse than going on a shoot and you're like, damn, I forgot an extra battery. Oh, I forgot my filter, I forgot my mic. So number one in my system is double check my gear and figure out what I actually need. Now, you and I work together a little bit on the road. We work together on outside shoots and stuff. And one thing that I really admire that you do is you pack light. You don't bring a
Definitely.
lot of extra stuff, where I have so much extra stuff. So why don't you tell us how you try to your system for packing as light as possible?
Well, sorry, you caught me in the while I was
That's
taking
it.
a
I was
sip.
like, oh, he's drinking right now. I can get him now.
But yeah, you're right. I do pack light because I think I just got burned in the past bringing everything just in case, and then realizing that I have nowhere to leave it, or even if I do have somewhere to leave it, maybe it's too far, and then when I do need something that I left in my bag, I won't go because I don't have the time to just go all the way back to the photographer's room, get something and then come back. So I realized that the lighter you are, first of all, you can carry everything on your person at all times. And it's not going to be a pain in the butt, and also just for traveling and things like that, it just makes it easier on you as well and putting your stuff together. So for me, that's where I'm coming from. I like to have everything on me so that if I need it, it's there, but also just not overthinking it and not trying to overdo certain things like microphones, for example. Like always great to have a lapel, and to be honest, like a wireless mic kit is that small that it's kind of ridiculous to say like, oh no, I'm not going to bring it. It's just going to be a pain, but am I gonna use it? Like, unless I know I'm doing interviews, like, I'm never gonna use that at a game. So that's one thing that I can leave out that, first of all, takes less space in my bag. And second of all, like, just, you know, I don't have to worry about what to use when I'm recording. I've got my shotgun. This is what I'm using, and I'm gonna film accordingly. So if I'm filming something that's gonna be, someone talking, I'm gonna make sure that I'm on my wide lens. I'm just gonna get close and capture everything that way. So it forces you to film a certain way depending on the equipment that you have, but it goes back to like what you were saying, like just having a plan to begin with. So if I know I'm going to a game to film from a certain perspective, like if my goal is, if I'm filming basketball, I know I want some wide shots from the baseline, then I'm bringing my wide lens for sure, and maybe another lens that can be a bit longer if I want to go like get tighter shots or go further in the crowd or something. But I've got my two lenses. I'm not going to bring a third one or a fourth one that does something different. I'm just going to stick to the plan and have those two options. And same thing with the microphone. I'm just going to stick to the option that I know I need. Monitor. Obviously, I don't need lights. I don't need a tripod. I don't need all these things. So why bring them? Why make you know, make everything overly complicated? So I keep it light and tight, and it makes it easier also to like find stuff in your bag, because when your bag is all cramped up and there's stuff everywhere, to go get your earphones at the bottom of that pocket that has like a lens and batteries and all these other things on top of it, like it becomes a pain, and it slows you down and you end up not using them because it's just, you don't want to have to open everything just to get to your earphones. So if everything is easily accessible, it makes your life easier. So for me, yeah, it's about being able to have everything on me and have easy access to it, so that when I do make a creative decision that has the implication of using something else, I can do it easily. So I'm not discouraged from doing something that I know will look better just because it's a pain to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And I think it all goes with having the idea already in mind of what you're gonna shoot. Like, lenses are key. W Like, don't bring too many lenses. Like, I bring in one versatile lens, like a 35 to 150 or 70 to 200, depending on what sport, or a wide angle. I have the 17-28, you have the 16-35. Like, two lenses max, 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 max. And you could probably get away with one lens if you really wanted to. Like, that's where a 28 to 75 could be good for basketball. It really depends on the sport you're filming, but you really have to plan out your shoot, and that's part of your system. And then, once you have your lens, then you got to make sure your camera settings are dialed in. And that is something that I suggest when you get a new camera. Set it up where, like, so we have the Sonys, and my Sony, when I put it in the number one mode, I'm at 24 frames per second. When I put it in number two, I'm at 60 frames per second. Three, it's 120 frames per second. It's fast, and I have the white balance all set to 56K, so I know where my starting point is. My 120 frames, that's at the second ISO, so I already know where my starting point is. So camera settings are key, and they're all part of your systems, especially if you're in a pressure situation where you're doing a cinematic thing at 24 frames and all of a sudden you realize, like, shit, I need some slow motion. So you just, switch that button, boom, you're in slow motion. So I think that for me, that's another key system that I have, is knowing my camera settings and having my camera set up properly where I can move quickly from image to image or idea to idea.
Yeah,
You
no,
you
I
do the
agree.
same basically?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the memory recalls from that perspective are a great tool because yeah, if you're gonna switch frame rates, sometimes you forget to adjust the shutter speed or you forget to adjust something else. So to have everything like you did for like you said, like for by frame rate, so it means when you switch to your 60p settings, then the shutter speed changes accordingly, everything. So that's one way to make sure that you didn't forget one thing, that you didn't, make a mistake. And also just like for me, I know going to a venue like these days, I tend to go to the same venues over and over. So when I put my kit together, I'll format the card, things like that, and I'll also like if I'll put my white balance in advance so that I don't forget early at the venue, especially right now it's winter, so that I don't do that much outdoor stuff. So I'll just like key in on both my cameras the white balance of the venue, and that way when I'm in it, I start filming right away. Like I don't go because often like your first like 5 to 10 shots are like just horrible color wise until the point you're like, oh, I forgot, and then everything after
Yeah.
that is fine. So yeah, if I can avoid that, it's stupid. It's not a big deal, but it's one less thing to worry about. And sometimes if it's more than 5 10 shots, you're like, oh well, might as well just stick with that so that I can color correct everything the same way. So yeah, it's good to like do it in advance if you know exactly, the type of color temperature that you need for that venue. And if it's outdoors, it's easy. It's just like a daylight preset. So yeah, just put it in advance so that you don't forget later. And yeah, whatever stuff that you can prepare in advance setting wise, definitely do it because there's nothing worse than being there and then realizing because sometimes you change things as well like I do. Like sometimes if I'm doing like I'm talking about a camera here in my studio, uh i'll 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 take away like the eye autofocus, like the eye recognition and all that stuff, and then I forget because I turn off the camera, move on to other things. So like to by putting my camera back to like memory 2, for example, that all this stuff will turn back on. And sometimes like I play with the responsiveness, things like that, and I completely forget about it. So by having all these things made for sports in my memory recalls, that guarantees that everything I change while I was doing like beauty shots in my studio is not gonna stay that way when I go back to filming sports.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You want your camera to be set up for speed, and you want to be comfortable and be able to trust it. There's nothing worse than double guessing. Do I have the right settings? Do I have the white balance net? Another thing
Yeah.
that I started doing is me. My backpack is definitely a lot heavier than yours. Z. I definitely pack a lot more
Yes.
than you, but my camera is set up now
Well,
when I've been
to be
going on
fair, that
shoots.
that
Is
time that we filmed together, that you have the heaviest bag I've ever. It was like a week long shoot or something. Like it made
Yeah.
sense that you had a lot of stuff.
No, but even when we were at the Alouettes, you'd lift up my bag and you're like, "What did you bring?" And I'm like, "Everything. I brought everything. I have a drone in there. I got
Yeah, that's true.
GoPros. I got a Pocket 3. I got a little too much stuff." But I am getting better at leaving stuff at home. But my main shooting camera, what I've been slowly doing is leaving stuff off of it, depending on what I'm doing. Like you don't always need your big external monitor. You can use an iPhone now with the monitor control app. Or if you're using a monopod, do you really need the top handle? If you're not using an XLR mic, then no, you probably don't need it. Even a side handle, depending on what you're doing, do you need it? Do you not? So my camera setup now is changing all the time, depending. And one thing that I find myself using less and less of is my V mount battery. And I really like it. It can power it for the whole day, but I find it way too heavy and it slows me down. So I'd rather just keep an extra battery in my pocket. I know I'm good for like 3 hours with the battery in it in my pocket. Like I'm pretty good. So these are things that now are becoming part of my system of being light. I want to be able to move all over without any restrictions. And that comes up with my next topic is like your shot list. Your shot list is the number one most important thing for a system because there's nothing worse than when you get home and you put in that card and you start looking at the footage and your client's like, "Oh, do you have the following shot or do you have this?" And you're like, "Holy shit, no, I don't."
Especially if you're working for like a brand or team. Like if you're shooting for yourself and you're just looking for highlights for, action is one thing. But if you're actually working for a team, then they're probably going to need like specific shots. And so, yeah, you need to have a shot list to make sure you don't forget them.
Exactly. And sh- show up early. Show up early and start getting that shot list right away. Like for me, for example, like last week, I go to place early. I'd fly my drone. I get like empty conference room. I get all the little shots that I might not need for the edit I'm doing tonight, but I definitely need it for an edit down the future. And the same thing goes with sports venues, like get those empty seats, get the basketballs up close, get all those nice B-roll shots and make sure they're on your shot list because they're important. And if you're working for a team more than once, you don't have to get them all one day, but focus on different things as you go because it's going to fill your bank full of footage and I guarantee you will use those shots. So E, what's your shot list look like? Say let's just go with basketball since you've been filming a lot of basketball lately. So when you're going to do one of your videos, what's a must on your shot list?
Well, definitely some type of establishing shot, and usually I'll do a few different ones to so that I can pick later on in the edit. But like something about the outside of the venue, especially if it's like a nice, front of the building with the name of the arena, especially if there's like a lot of fans sort of walking in. Otherwise, inside you can have some nice, cool or professional team branding as well that you can use. Just like a wide shot of the arena or a logo or something like that. But then it becomes like I like sometimes during the warm up to try to get some shots of the ball going into the basket, just that I can potentially use it if I need just like a close up of the basketball going in. So I try to get those in the warm up if I have time. Otherwise, during the game, like obviously the game action, but other than that, try to get fans and to get fans without missing too much of the action. Sometimes you have to be creative. So like it's either getting a wide shot from the stand so that you get the action in the background, but you also get some fan reactions in front of you, kind of in the foreground of your shot, or especially at the professional level, during breaks, there's always something happening, like during a timeout or in between quarters. Like there'll be some, competition of like kids trying to shoot free throws or whatever it is. Um, Fans will react to that. So by filming a fan reacting to something like that, you'll visually look exactly the same as a reaction to a made basket. So you can use those shots in your edit without necessarily sacrificing like filming the actual action while you're filming fans. So the most stuff like that I can record while the game is not happening, that's just like extras that I can have like in my pockets. So yeah, it's more about making the most of the pregame, during breaks, things like that. That's what my shot list is mostly about. Because during the game, obviously, I'm more focused on the action, but it's also about um, figuring out where I'm going to be to cover the action. So maybe the first quarter I'm on the baseline, second quarter as well, but then the third quarter I'll definitely rove around, try to get action from different point of views, maybe from the crowd, from like the sideline, things like that, and then towards the end of the game I'll come back to the baseline to get a nice shot of a potential game winning basket or something like that. So yeah, it's managing your positioning. So you, without even writing it down, if you made a plan that like in the first quarter I'm going to be there, second I'm going to be there, third there, that, just stick to that plan. So that way you've got your camera angle covered basically. So that's yeah, usually how I go about it.
Yeah, I use the clock. What I do is I pick my angles. Oh, and obviously, when you're picking those angles, you have your shots in mind, right? So I'll look at the clock and I'll try and maximize it. Like, so every 10 minutes, I'm changing, I'm going here, I'm going there. But something I started doing too more recently was I stopped chasing plays. I stopped just filming the play. I would set up shots where I'm gonna wait a couple minutes for that shot that I want to actually happen because I know I'm going to use that shot in my video. So if it's their point guard coming down and I really want him to hit a long three, well, I'm just going to stick on that guy because I know he, every third, fourth possession, he's going to take a three. So maybe I might spend 5, 6 minutes to get that one shot, but I know I'm going to get it perfect. And that takes patience, and it's something when I was a beginning shooter, I did not have. I would not set up for that shot where, like, you're waiting the coach, say if you have a coach who walks by your camera, I wouldn't wait for him to walk by my camera, and then I would use that as a cut. Now, I'm thinking the edit while I'm shooting, and that's really, really helped me, but having the patience to let the shots come to you and not have that fear of missing something. And that's part of my system, is letting it come to me and not forcing it, because when I used to try and force it, I used to get a lot of shitty shots because I was trying to make it happen instead of letting it happen. So I think that's important. Moving around though, and one of, like, we talk about angles all the time, but the more angles you have, the more versatility your edit's going to have, and it's going to make it look like more people were there covering it and you had more cameras. And it also makes it a little bit more exciting for you and more fun too, because you're getting to view this game from a different angle. You're able to see different players, different plays, different fans. You can make it. There's plenty of shoots where there wasn't a lot of fans at games, and I made it look like there was a lot of fans because I'm showing all these different angles of fans. But basically, it's just me moving around. The fans are still very scarce, but you're helping make it look a little different. So by having that shot list and that angle list, you're setting yourself up for success. One.
Yeah, definitely. And if you think about it, like filming like basketball from the baseline is a good example. It's like you're sitting on the baseline, you're getting all these great dunks, this great action. You're like, oh yeah, this is the spot. But ultimately, your video, let's say your video is going to be like 40 seconds. You're not going to show like 10 dunks from the same exact camera angle. That's going to be boring. So if there's such a thing as, if I'm getting too many good shots from this angle, I need to get those similar shots from a different angle, like, because that way it'll look much better if you can cut from one angle to the other and not just have all your cool shots, your hero shots, always the exact same framing from the exact same camera angle.
Exactly. And listen, some arenas you can't move around. You're stuck in
Yeah,
one
that's true.
spot. So what I would do for there is that's where the second lens really comes in handy. So you could put that wide on, you could put that tight 70 to 200 and get that tight shot. So that way you can fake it and make it look like there's more cameras there too, just by changing your lens. I don't enjoy changing lenses in the middle of games and stuff like that. That is a stressful thing. I suggest, if you do have to do that, or you do know that you're going to venue like that, if you have a second camera, that's where it comes in really, really handy. It saves you a lot of speed and time because you can go back and forth between the two. But not everybody has a luxury. I have been stuck in the past switching lenses because I was stuck in the same spot, but I knew going into it. So that was part of my plan for that day. And really, all it is about relieving the stress, because it is stressful. You're trying to shoot, then you got to edit after. Sometimes you got to give highlights right after the game. You just want to be as prepared as possible. So really, really plan it out. And that shot list, that angle list, whatever you want to call it, that is going to help you succeed.
Yeah. Another way to make it easier to switch lenses is to carry, like, I have one, like it's like a photographer bag, but it's more like the size of a fanny pack, and you can fit like one or two lenses. Maybe not like a 70 to 200, but like like smaller lenses, like you can put like two or three of them, and batteries, and just like basically just like the basics. And so yeah, it's a lot easier because you just have it in front of you and you switch, and it's a lot easier than having a backpack and doing the whole thing.
What do you was there something that used to distract you, or something that now you ignore, that you don't care about while you're filming?
What do you mean by distract?
Well, like for me, when I used to film, when I first started shooting in log, okay, I used to constantly stare at the meter. I used to constantly stare at it, and I used to panic when it went over 1.7 to 2.0, or go down to 1.3, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" And I change settings, and I go and I look at my footage. I'm like, you can see the settings change, and then I just kind of realize, you just ignore that number. That's just a starting point. It's going to vary where you are, and my color is still going to be good. But you have to kind of learn to get over those hurdles because I used to stare at that metering all the time and be like, oh my God, I want my S log 3 to be perfect. And you know what? It's just a reference. It doesn't mean it's exactly, because it will pick up the highlight and it will, as long as your 2.0 isn't like flashing like crazy, you're pretty good, and you're not too, or you're the opposite and you're like at -2, then I'd say, okay, there's an issue. But the rest of the
Yeah.
up and down, like I had to learn how to ignore that because I was always panicking. I was like, oh, my shot's gonna
Yeah.
be crap.
Yeah, no, I see
You have
what you
anything
mean.
like that?
Well, I think like that's a good example. Like I think once because I think when I first started shooting in log, I didn't have like LUTs, like custom LUTs in my monitor or in my screen. So it's a lot scarier when you don't actually see what it's going to look like, and especially filming in LUTs, you can't really tell what's overexposed. So so having internal not internal, well, yeah, the ability to import LUTs into my camera and to look at my monitor and see exactly what my footage is going to look like once I'm done. That made, because I was like you, I was just looking at the meter all the time, like just basically like all my exposure was relying on that. So I was always looking at it and stressing over it. But now that I can see the image and know that I can trust that it looks good. So like the number, yes, I'll still look from time to time to make sure that I'm in the right range, but I'm not as stressed because I can see the image and know that it looks all right. Like even if it is off by a little bit, it's definitely manageable. So I'm not as worried. But yeah, other than that, I'd say like the biggest stress, which is probably the same for everyone, is the color temperature. Like we're always worried that it's not as good as it should be or it could be, and it's like, oh, is it too blue? Is it too yellow? Especially if it's like an evening game that starts in the daylight and then ends up in the lights. There's always that weird transition in the middle. And even once you're fully with the lights, like sometimes it's different in different spots. Like at a football game, like it's always like a bit messy. Or if you're at a basketball or volleyball game where there's lights, but there's also a light coming through big windows. um, yeah, it's very hard to know exactly what color temperature you should be using, so it's always a bit stressful. And when you start realizing that maybe it doesn't look as good as you thought it did at first, like, should I change or should I just stick with it because now I just filmed like half the game this way? And it's one of those things that you're never fully happy with what you do, so you just have to accept it and fix it in post, as they say.
Fix it in post. I used to always stress too about my audio, and getting a good shotgun mic that you trust and you really know where the levels are is a bonus. Or even if you do lapel people, I used to be worried about background noise and fan noise and all that. But I will say that with this AI revolution, and Adobe's done a great job with their podcast mix and stuff like that. Like it's very easy now to clean up audio. So I'm a lot less stressed over it. I mean, if you do have a lot of noise and you're using one of these AI plugins to clean up your audio, sometimes the voice sounds a little robotic. So I would keep like the original audio in the background a bit, but at a lower level. But it's really, really taken off a lot of stress off me when I'm doing interviews. And like the other day, I was doing one. Sorry to throw this in at UE, but I was doing an interview on the beach, and it was windy and it was hot, and I was like, had a good shot, and I'm like hearing the wind, and I'm like, oh, it's okay, I'll fix it in post. And I did. You didn't hear that wind at all, and I was not worried about that wind. Where like 2 years ago, I would have been panicking inside and being like, oh my god, I hope this is good. I'm gonna have to find the right frequency, and I'm gonna have to do this. So there are some workflows that are getting a lot easier, and it is relieving stress. But you know, having that system, having that little checklist internally, takes off a lot of stress. So now that we've kind of talked about like the shooting aspect and being organized, now it comes to the real work, and that's the editing and audio editing and all that. So key points, like how are you? You got a quick turnaround. You have your shot list. How are you organizing this footage?
Yeah, well, then it depends on the type of video that you're producing, but like definitely having a system of organizing your footage in a way that you're used to it, and you can basically, the idea is to make it as easy and quick as possible for you to find your shots. So, For me, it starts while I'm filming, like just, doing the whole covering the lens every time I get a good shot. But then it becomes like organizing my bins and, different sports but usually I tend to go with just chronologically. Like I'll put like each quarter, for example, in a different bin so I can access things faster, or I'll just do a footage dump where all those clips that had like a lens blocked right after them, I'll open them and put like the play on the sequence, and then that sequence becomes where I pick stuff out. But even maybe in that sequence separately or in the separate sequence, I'll put like on the all the fans, for example. So like I'll separate it that way, and maybe I'll color code if I'm doing like two teams. Like I'll have one team in blue and the other team in pink. So that way I know, like, just by looking, like where to go find clips from one team and from the other. So yeah, it's just to make it easy on yourself so that you can find stuff, because where you spend most of your time is just, look searching for clips and just going through every clip and double clicking and playing at each of them. Like if you can avoid that as much as possible and use your keyboard more than your mouse, you're way faster in the edit. That, well, for me anyway.
100%. And I think that's where the bins really help. Like, so I have all bins. Like, so all my cameras, any camera I'm using, it has its own bin. So if it's an FX3, A7 IV, GoPro, drone, whatever, they all have their own bin. It's all in there. I'm color coding. I'm blocking shots. I'm doing everything possible so when I open up that project, I'm ready to go. And honestly, I'm thinking of music or ideas before I even do the shoot. That's on my shot list, or I've already even created the project already too. Depending on how fast the turnaround is, I'll go in and have a project ready with a rough audio section down before I've even shot. So that way, when I'm importing clips, I'm just as fast as I need to be. But you don't always have, like, you don't always have that quick turnaround. Sometimes you have a little bit more time, but when I have stress like that, I'm doing that stuff all before so that I could just edit that as fast as possible. Um, One of the challenges that I have, and I'm sure you have the same, is you have all this great footage, and even like you flag shots and then you throw them on your timeline, and sometimes you gotta let go of some good shots, some shots that maybe could easily be in a video and that. And I feel like that's one of the things that I struggle with is saying goodbye to those shots because I feel so attached to it because I filmed it. I feel like, wow, I really killed this one. I really got a good angle. But I got a couple of them like that. I don't need 5 threes from the same guy or whatever it is. And it's like that one's gone, this one's gone. And I feel like that's part of it. You gotta, like, you want to be fast, you want to be efficient, but you just gotta let go. You gotta trim the fat. And that's something that you learn as you go. So how do you deal with that struggle?
Probably better than most because I'm not as
You're just like,
emotionally
screw it,
attached.
God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a mean person, but but no, I think, like, first of all, like, I think it's a great problem to have. So like if it does happen, you can feel good about yourself knowing that you did a pretty good job, because if you didn't, you would have the opposite problem. And also I think these days it's like if whatever you don't use in that particular edit, you can use somewhere else. Like you might just make, like, if you got a great play that you didn't use in your edit for some reason, nothing's stopping you from using that play by itself on the reel or, a TikTok video, and just like, a bit of speed ramping as just like a one sort of social media clip that you're sharing separately in your story or whatever. So like whatever you don't use in your edit, you can use different, like somewhere else, or just in a different way. So you never really just not use it. I think that's more something like back in the day when, like, it was we're doing like an edit, we're filming for it, whatever we haven't used is just never going to see the light of day. Now with social media, there's so many places to put content that whatever you don't use in your main edit will find home somewhere else. So it's less of an issue to not use something, I feel.
Yeah, I guess you could just use it as a straight clip also.
Yeah.
Um, but it is hard when you have a good shot and you're not using it and you're like, "Ooh, I want to show it." But yeah, you're right. I didn't look at
For
it
me,
that
it's
way, but
more
you
like
could just share it later.
For me, it's more when the shot is just like too long, and it's like you either have to like just show like a small portion of it or something like that. And it's like, oh, it would be much better if I could use it all. But if I use it all, then the video's boring. That's where it gets a bit frustrating. But I find ways with jump cuts or things like that to try to make it happen
Say
in
it,
less
say it,
time.
say it. Speed ramp. I'll speed ramp it.
Yes.
I'll get it to where I want it.
Speed ramp, a bit of a jump cut somewhere, like a 3 point shot, for example. If I just showed one that had like a slow mo in the middle, I'm not gonna do another one with us where we follow the ball from start to finish. So maybe I'll get the shot and then we'll get the basket, and I'll cut like in the middle just to make the most of it.
One thing that helps me too during my edits to speed it up is to have a story. Like, if it's a recap video and that, you don't have to do a chronological in that, but I want to show a challenge. I want to show a victory. I want to show a little bit of all that. And I'm coming up with a story on how I'm going to do that because once I have that story, I know what order I'm putting those clips in. And that speeds up your edit. Well, at least for me, that speeds up my edit so fast. If I'm just doing random highlights, then I'm telling you, it's going to take me a lot longer to edit that video. So even if they are all highlights, then I'm trying to tell somewhat of a story. And the story is more for me than anyone else. Like I want to know how this is going, and hopefully the audience catches on too. But me having a story that goes to the beat and goes to the music I chose just helps me be more productive. And the faster I put that memory card in my computer after an event, the faster my edit is because it's all fresh. If I wait 2, 3 days sometimes between projects, then that is going to slow me down because I have to rewatch everything. I'm forgetting things. So that's where you gain a lot of speed. And that's something that's very, very important, I feel.
Oh no, I agree. I think like it's like shooting to edit, basically, which is kind of having a story in mind and then shooting for that story helps you shoot less because like all right, I've got my establishing shot, I can move on to something else, and then okay, I've got enough action, now I can move on to filming fans for a while. Okay, I've got enough of fans, maybe like what do I need to make my story work? Oh, it'd be great to get like a, I don't know, a referee showing a touchdown. So next time they're in the red zone, instead of focusing on the play, maybe I just get the referee shot, or at least get a wide shot of everything, or like so. By doing those things, when you get into the edit, you know what you've got. You got everything to do the story that you wanted, and you don't really have all that extra fluff that is unnecessary. So you're editing much faster. So yeah, having a story in mind while filming is going to make the editing way easier. And this, you have if you already picked the music as well, that also helps because you have the rhythm in mind, and you probably know that you may not need to film in slow mo at all, or maybe you do need for slow mo because you have that music idea that's like super dramatic, and you want 4K 120, or so picking all these things, whatever you can do before the game, do it. Like it's definitely going to help during and after.
Yeah, and you do have this internal struggle, right? Of like speed versus quality. And I think you can achieve both. What I do is like I'm throwing everything that I like, everything like all those black shots, all that, all on my timeline, and I'm kind of adjusting it as I go. But I'm not going back all the time and rewatching the first couple frames and going back. I'm just boom, everything's on my timeline. And then I'm giving it a final pass through where I'm matching things up to beats and I'm really putting that edit together. And I feel like if you're not going back to the beginning of the timeline and watching to where you're at, you will save tons of time. So be confident in what you put on that timeline. And then, once you have everything you want on the timeline, then really spend the time fast to get everything lined up to where you want it to be. Don't just keep rewatching the same couple frames over and over again and going back and forth because you're just wasting time. And that's how you can be more efficient. I know as an editor, sometimes you have that feeling like, is it polished enough? Is it ready? Am I almost there? Like, just go with it. Trust me, man. Especially if you have a fast turnaround, you'll be fine. But we tend to overthink things. At least I do anyway. Like I always want to be polished. I want it to be so perfect, and I want every shot. I want all the best shots. Sometimes, depending on the project, you don't always have the chance to get it exactly how you would like it. But no one else knows what you film. No one else knows what you have. So just try your best to get it as polished as possible. And next up is like published, right? How do
Yeah,
you know when you're done in edit? Uh,
yeah, it depends on the if you're working by yourself or in a team. Because I was
yeah.
gonna say, like
If you're
when
working
you
on
were
a team, it's
saying,
different.
yeah, well, I was gonna say actually, like what you were saying about not being too polished and spend too much time on every second and rewinding all the time, especially if you're working on a team where someone has to approve everything that you're doing. You might as well get it approved while it's still in a rough state so that they take out the parts they don't want and make you add other things. And once that's approved, then you can go all in with the, adjusting all the colors and adjusting everything to fine tuning everything, because you don't want to spend like an hour getting a shot perfect and then your boss telling you, I don't like that shot, take it out. You know what
It's happened. I've had it happen. So,
I mean?
what's the part of editing that slows you down the most?
Well, definitely going through footage, and then yeah, probably the search for perfection. But there's obviously a fine line between doing a good job and overdoing it. But yeah, I think it comes with experience. To be honest, like there's no real recipe for that. It's just like the more you do it, the more confident you are in your work, and the faster you are doing it as well. So it's easier to get stuff done quickly and you feel more confident in your work because especially if you work for clients or for a team, like what they're expecting. So I know like some of my clients that were like a pain in the butt when I first started working with them, and they would have like a million changes. Eventually I get to understand what they're after, what they want to see and stuff like that. So there's less and less of those painful, you know, changes and emails back and forth and all that sort of stuff. So once you understand who your viewer is and who your client is, things like that, like it gets a lot easier with the quest for perfection because it's easier to get there quicker, basically. But yeah, I would say that's probably what slows me down the most.
It's funny when you're talking about over editing. I remember I learned about over editing the hard way one time where I spent all this time perfecting a project. And I don't know why. I was assuming that it would just get approved the first time I sent it over. And after I think the fifth or sixth revision, we finally got there. And I realized, like, okay, I'm not doing this again. Next time, I'm going to give them the rough cut right away, get their points back, see if we're on the same page, and then I'll go from there. And it's true. It is something that I kind of forgot because I'm working on my own now, and my clients are usually pretty trusting. But back when I worked for a team, and you're going revision, and yeah, it's tough, and it does slow you down big time. So don't worry about getting that perfect one. Export it right away if you do have to get it approved. And
Uh,
yeah, it was tough.
Especially if
It was
there's
tough.
a story, like especially if it's like a
Yeah.
storytelling thing, like we have to make sure that we're all like agreeing on the direction of that story. Because if you spend days telling like a certain story and they wanted it to go in another direction, then yeah, you wasted a lot of time. So yeah, always good to send the rough cut in certain situations.
Yeah, and I guess you know what the whole idea of all these systems that is to keep it simple, to keep consistency across projects because you will have moments where it's chaotic, it's hectic, it's fast paced, and you have to somehow keep your calm. And even if it's like you get a curveball where you're filming a game and they say, "Oh, we need you to interview this player at halftime." Well, if I don't have my lapels set, I didn't bring it, but I have my shotgun mic. I know I have tools to clean up the audio. You're not stressed, and that's where your systems come in handy. Or, if they ask you, hey, they call you up later and say, hey, we need footage of this guy, but you film warm up, you film those extra shots, and you have footage of that player that who maybe didn't play a lot. You know, that's what covers you. So make the whole idea is this is when the stress comes that you're prepared and that you can handle the challenge. Because there are a lot of challenges, especially when you're a solo shooter. I mean, it's different when you're on a team because you always have someone who has your back, and it's a good feeling to know that if I miss the angle, someone else does. But sometimes you don't have that luxury, and that's why we thought that these systems would come in handy to do. Um, what about you, E? Like, what do you do? How do you gain your clients' trust? The first couple shoots with your systems and stuff.
Well, yeah, I think it's just by having them, it just shows that you're in control, you're relaxed, you know what you're doing, and that inspires confidence. Like it's just if you look like you're running everywhere, you're stressed and you're edgy and you're always like, oh wait, and then a lot they get stressed as well. They feed off you. So if you're relaxed and you seem like you're confident about what you're doing and the shots that you're getting, then everybody's sort of following your lead, and but obviously you have to deliver. But yeah, it does help during a shoot, especially if the client is kind of looking over your shoulder and kind of producing the thing, but they don't really, they're not really involved in the creative side of things because they don't know cameras and stuff. So they're just looking at you and they're feeding off your energy. So the more confident you seem, that they'll buy it. So you have to project that type of energy because otherwise everybody's stressed. Yeah.
Exactly. If you show up calm and productive, they'll be calm too. And once you deliver and you become more reputable, like they understand, they'll understand your reputation. You won't have to fight as much, maybe to get things approved or maybe to get different camera angles, stuff like that. Do you have any scenarios where like you cracked under pressure ever,
Oh yeah, probably.
or a pressure situation that you had to like think fast?
Yeah, I can't think of anything in particular right now, but there's definitely situations where I was stressed out of my mind, but I try not to show it. And often I was able, like in post production, to fix whatever issue or just whatever issue I had, or just sort of go in a different direction slightly that of the original plan, but because that direction sort of ended up being a good one, like no one really complained about it. So it's nothing that I wasn't able to like fix, but there's definitely situations where I was, going in way over my head, not really knowing what I was doing, and just hoping for the best, and then yeah, figured out figured out a way out of that situation later on in the edit. But probably earlier in my career, like not really knowing much about cameras and just filming, and then realizing that yeah, it doesn't look as good as it could have been, or something, and trying to fix it next time. But it is what it is. It's a learning curve.
Exactly. I've had some pressure points. A lot of times when we're doing like say like car wash day where you have players mic'd up and you need them to say stuff and that sometimes you have audio cracks. Sometimes you have to ask guys to redo a line or something like that. And it was something when I first started, I was very, very shy about. But then as I got more confident, I realized like, listen, I need to get this done properly. So, hey, excuse me, can you please say the tagline again? Can you please do this again? And it's really not the end of the world. It shows that you are paying attention. It shows that you're confident and it shows that you do have a system. So, you know what? Just take the time to try your best to get it right. And if you have to take, an extra shot or, take an extra second, take that because it's going to make a big, big difference. I'd rather tell a guy like, hey, we need to redo it. Or even if it's something silly, like, every videographer's greatest fear is like, hey, I didn't press record. I would rather tell them like, hey, sorry, I don't know what happened. The camera didn't record. Can we redo that again? Than not say anything at all and miss it and then maybe not get invited back, because these things do happen. And I guarantee you it will happen where you don't press record or when you go to stop record and the red light goes on and then it starts recording and then you have like the biggest panic. Just stay calm and act calm and it will go well. But I guess that's about it for systems today. The only thing that I have to say is like, listen, talent can get you attention and that, but systems keep you consistent. And that's the whole way to get new jobs is being consistent and, come up with your own system. There is no right or wrong system, but just have something that you can trust that keeps you confident, keeps you calm. Anything to add?
Yes. It's like
Yes.
I think Kobe Bryant said, it's like confidence comes from preparation.
Oh, all right. Let's end on that then. We'll let E get the big moment ended. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare. Take care, guys.